Hi, I'm Scott Wrighton. I serve as Decatur City Manager, and it's truly our pleasure, and the staff that helped me do it, to bring information to you about what's going on in the city of Decatur. There was a recent media story about an addition to affordable housing here in Decatur in the form of 20-some units up at the corner of Carrie Lane and Charles, just north of Pershing, through a project with the Mental Health Board of Macon County. This is a facility that will provide new housing for persons with mental illness and who need mental assistance and support services in the places that they live. There is not a lot of, although we're very pleased to see this new project, and it certainly fills an important void in our community. You will probably have noted that we are not building or partnering with other organizations to build lots of new affordable housing. And one of the reasons for that is that our inventory and our assessment of housing here in Decatur is that there's already quite a bit of what you could call affordable housing. The problem is that in many cases it's not in a condition that's really fit for human occupancy. There's 471 units over at Wabash Crossing, but only half of them are full because the other half, roughly, are really not up to date. They've been damaged, and the owner of that facility hasn't brought it up to date. There are other places in the community, both multifamily and single family, where what it really needs is it just needs rehabilitation. And that's why so many of the programs that we pursue in terms of partnerships with others, with other organizations, or with grants that we pursue from the state and federal government, are really focused on trying to rehab the existing housing stock rather than building new affordable housing. Because if we can rehab existing buildings, whether it's an old school or whether it's a building that's historically been used for residential, that really, in our counting, will take care of the need for additional affordable housing without having to build new affordable housing. Another topic that's coming up, it has to do with garbage and recycling. Now, I've had the opportunity to speak on these videos about garbage and recycling in the past, and it's starting to reach the final stage. I think we're coming around to the home stretch. On November 2nd at 5:30 here in the City Council chambers, there's going to be a hearing, not before the City Council, but a hearing before a hearing officer, on proposed changes both to rates as well as some of the terms and conditions and rules for how garbage and recycling is picked up for residential customers only and in units with 6 or less living units in the same building. One of the changes involves taking most of the collection service out of alleys, for those of you who are affected in that if you have garbage service at the alley now. One of the other changes is we're going to require that everybody use either the 64 or the 95-gallon wheeled totes because they're the specific kind that they can use mechanization to pick them up, and it doesn't require somebody to actually physically pick up these containers. These containers that are the wheeled carts also don't tend to be knocked over as easily, either by animals or people or wind, and so there's less blowing of garbage or strewing of it just because the container fell over and the lid opened up. So for several reasons, that's why we're requiring those kinds of containers. But under the arrangement, the hauler has to provide that container at no additional cost to all customers who need it. Now, you might already have a container that meets those requirements, and that's fine. You can continue to use that container. But if you don't have a container that meets those requirements, or the existing one is broken or for some other reason doesn't work, then after these new changes are enacted, you just call the hauler and they'll deliver it. And they've built that cost for that into what the monthly rate will change to. So in about a week or so, some of the changes to the ordinance will be available for you to take a look at on our website, and we'll be giving some more information with some more details about how some of these garbage rules will be changing and how the rates will change as well. This week happens to be Fire Prevention Week, and so the importance of fire safety and of making sure that each of your families has an escape plan and that you've thought that through is something that is contemplated during Fire Prevention Week. As an aside to that, I'll say that all of our departments of city government have what we call performance outcome indicators, measures that we use and that we can quantify and count to indicate whether or not we're making progress in how we provide the services better, faster, cheaper, all those things that we want to do. One of the indicators that the fire department uses, for example, since it's Fire Prevention Week, is that when a fire can be contained to its room of origin, in almost all cases, the loss of life and property is minimized. And so that goal affects the strategies about how our firefighters respond to fires. Our numbers are actually not as good as they are in some other communities, and it's not because our firefighters aren't very hardworking and well-trained. It's because several of the fires, and this drives the numbers, are in abandoned structures, derelict houses where either deliberately or accidentally fires are started, and because it's vacant and because it's derelict and open, the fire spreads faster, and so it's much harder for the firefighters to contain it to the room of origin, although they certainly try very hard to do that. I bring that up not in any way to be critical of that indicator. It's a very effective indicator, but to tell you that if you know more information about a place that might be being vandalized, that might be one of those kinds of hazards, even though we're trying to keep up with structures that need to be demolished, that meet the code. Sometimes we get cooperation from the owners, sometimes we don't. Every story, every house that is derelict and needs to come down oftentimes has a different backstory behind it. But if you have information that might help us both prevent fires like that, might prevent any other kind of loss or safety hazard at one of these derelict structures, that would be helpful for us in making decisions about which ones we go after first and which ones are our highest priority in order to maintain public safety throughout our community, we'd be grateful to have that information. Thanks for tuning in, and I look forward to giving you some more information about your city next week.